Ultimately, God gets the glory and the credit, because without him leading me to these resources and people who were able to help us, we wouldn't have made it. And so if you're watching this, then more than likely he has led you this way, or is leading you here so that you can share with someone else who's going through something similar. I just want to state that I am not a veterinarian. I do not diagnose and I do not prescribe. However, as a horse owner and advocate for my own health and that of my pets, I've learned that I don't have to be a veterinarian or a doctor to make well-informed decisions for myself and for my pets. And so when asked, what did you do? I share my story because it's my story. It's our personal testimony. And I'm not saying that this is going to work for every horse and horse owner out there. But what I am saying is that it did work for me. It worked for Sis, and any horse that I've purchased or that comes into my care now goes on my daily regimen. We focus on gut health, and people who work with me on a massage level who are doing a very similar, if not the same, outline in regards to gut health and diet for their horses are also experiencing ulcers going away and a lot of other issues going away because it starts with the gut. And so I'm forever grateful for what we went through so that I'm able to share this story with you. And I can't wait to hear more testimonies of things in the future. So don't ever take my word for it or someone else's word for it. Do your own research, make your own informed decisions. Is this thing on? Where do I even begin? Hi, I'm Chelsea, and I want to share with you my journey with my horse Sis. And although many of you may have read it in its journal entry format written on my website, I wanted to share this now in video format and share with you some footage and videos and pictures that I hadn't previously shared. So she's talking to me in the barn, actually right now. She knows I'm talking about her. So I want to give you some background information and share with you, really start to finish, what we went through, because it was quite a lot, at least quite a lot for me, and I know a lot of you can resonate with our story, and I hope that it touches more people and more horses than it already has. So I will try to start from the beginning. I have owned and had horses for about 20 years now. And in June of 2017, I had to put down my Arabian that I had for 15 years. And that was really tough on me. She's what we call, you know, our heart horse. And before she passed, I was working with another trainer. I lived in Illinois at the time, and we were doing refresher training on 6 horses, two of the 6 that I own now being part of that 6. Sis was one of them. And so we were doing refresher trainings on them so that the owner at the time could list them for sale. And Sis was the least furthest along of all the horses. I actually didn't like her as much as I did the rest. She was just very spooky, very jumpy, very responsive. And I like a responsive horse, but she was almost a little too responsive. And so because she was the least far along, we had to work with her every week. So we consistently worked with her for a few months. And she was just always a very anxious horse. And at the time, the other trainer I was working with, he was like, you and Sis would make a great pair. And I'm like, but I already have a horse. And I had Nikki, my Arabian. Well, I had to put her down, and about a month later, I was just hearing some things about Sis that didn't make me happy. And I knew that she did have a lot of potential and that she was still for sale. And so after sharing this with my husband, he said, go get her. So I went and bought this horse, and it was just a whirlwind. A month later, after putting a horse down and not thinking that I had room in my heart for another one yet, we've all been there. And so I got Sis, brought her home, and she was quite stressed, and obviously the change of coming to a new home. My mom only had one horse. She was at my mom's house, an hour and a half away from where I lived. I lived in town, so I didn't have the property. So Sis was pastured alone, even though she could see my mom's horse. And I had just started learning more about herbs and a natural diet in regards to horses, because me and my family were experiencing some different health issues with ourselves and working on gut health. So I had already started implementing that for the horses. So Sis was on a base diet of just salt and minerals, hay, and full pasture turnout, very basic. So fast forward from July, end of July of 2017 when I got her, I had started using herbs more frequently and was distributing for a company at the time. And I tested Sis, and we tested my mom's horse with this herb kit, which basically allows them to choose their herbs. And I remember at first being like, you know, here I was like new with this company, and I'm like, this is kind of hokey. And I don't know why I thought that, because I already use and was using essential oils with my horses, and they choose that the same exact way. God made them to do that. Wild horses, they pick what they need in the wild. Why wouldn't they be able to pick what they need when offered it? Because the term applied zoopharmacognosy states that the animals have their own innate ability to know what they need. Same with our cats, our dogs, our horses, if we actually allow them to. So my horses were already choosing their own oils, and if they liked this one and chose it based on their response, I would use those oils with them. And so I don't know why I had that disconnect with oils and herbs. Oils come from herbs. So I let Sis pick herbs, but I didn't go through all of the herbs. There were like 70 that she could choose from. I only went through like 35. And I didn't look at the descriptions of the herbs to really look at all of the properties and what those herbs address in the body. I just noticed that in my own mind, oh, I see that you've chosen chamomile. I personally know that chamomile is calming, right? Because we all think of chamomile tea. So I didn't look over her herb test as I should have, or ask for guidance in it, and I just ordered her a blend that was focused on like moody mares and calming down, because I'm like, well, that seems to match, you know, she's anxious. So she was on some herbs, still separated from my mom's horse, and just on that base clean diet. Fast forward through the winter, she did have some weight loss coming out of winter, but nothing out of the norm, because that's typically a detox period for horses. And so it wasn't anything that I was concerned about. I was riding her in the spring and getting ready for show season, May of 2018. I had ridden her with my mom. My mom and I went on a trail ride, had a beautiful ride. The very next day, I'm like, well, let's have a repeat of yesterday. I went outside about 6 o'clock in the evening to ride, and Sis was standing at the water trough with her head in the water trough up to her eyeballs, blowing bubbles. And I immediately knew something's wrong. So I ran out there and I put my ear to her stomach, and I didn't hear any gut sounds, both sides. And her sides were sucked in, and by that I mean behind the 18th rib, her flank was just, it wasn't relaxed. It wasn't a nice relaxed belly all the way to her, you know, leg. It was sucked in where you can see those ribs. So I knew that something was wrong. I called my family inside and I was like, come out, something's wrong. Started praying, texted my husband, who's a pilot. Thank goodness there's Wi-Fi. And I was able to tell him, pray for sis, something's wrong. And it was tough because, you know, the thoughts go through your head. And I was just thinking, you know, why me? Because I just lost my best friend. And I didn't want to go through this again. And we all know that no gut sounds are, you know, that's not good. So I called the vet, and I didn't have a vet established yet for her. We were new to Illinois and all of that. So I called the vet. The vet managed to come out, and of course this is all happening. I could go look at the date, like the weekend, right? It always happens on the weekend. So I called the vet. She comes out. She sedated her and tubed her and flushed her. And by that point it was dark out. We had sis pulled up in the round pen with the floodlights on at the corner of the barn and hay so that we could monitor. She was standing really weirdly, and where her front and back leg on the same side were forward and backward, like she was trying to kind of open up that part of her stomach and, like, you know, alleviate that side. So she was standing weird, still no gut sounds. We only heard gut sounds when she was sedated, and very little at that. The vet didn't find anything alarming. Of course, we were thinking colic. And so she said, just monitor her till the morning and see how it goes. I think she ate very little bit of hay. So the vet left. It was late at this point. We ended up going to bed, and then I went out to check her like 4 hours later. And at that point, she was standing the same again in the round pen. I don't think she had gone to the bathroom, but regardless, there were no gut sounds again. So I woke up my mom, and I'm sad to say that we made her walk all night because we thought it was colic. And so we walked her most of the night up and down the road until 7 o'clock the next morning. There was still no change. So at this point, I hauled to the vet, hoping that she would poop in the trailer. And got to the vet. She was sedated and tubed and flushed again. There was still no improvement, and she said, you have two options at this point. You can either, there's nothing more that I can do for you. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's a twist or impaction or anything like that. I mean, not only were they tubing, but they were also, you know, going up the rear end and pulling out poo, and everything seemed normal. So she said, you have two options. You can go home. If she doesn't improve by the afternoon, make a decision as far as putting her down. And or going to Horsey Hospital. She said, I can make some phone calls and get some quotes for you. I said, okay, let's see what that is. So all the time, still trying to communicate with my husband in the air, let him know what's going on, because, you know, I don't want to make these financial decisions without consulting with him. And after everything I just went through with my other horse, I'm thinking, great, I'm gonna lose another one, you know? And because I didn't have the money to spend for surgery and all of that. And so he said, at least go to the University of Missouri, which is where we were getting some quotes from, and he said at least get the ultrasound and the scope to see what's going on so that you can make a more informed decision either way. Because she was young. At the time she was 6 years old. So swapped mom for dad, dad for mom. Yes, dad for mom. Drove the 4 hours down to the University of Missouri. Still no poo in the trailer. I hear you, sis. She's talking to me inside because she hears me talking. Took her down there, they sedated her again, flushed her again, started running the tests and the blood work. And by this point, you know, Sis's nose is bleeding, her nasal passages are irritated, you know, and I'm just feeling horrible. And they're looking at her lungs, they were looking at her stomach. They noticed some stuff with her lungs, but it wasn't concerning. They, of course, were doing all the blood work. Calcium came back a little bit low. And when they scoped her and we had the live video feed, it showed that she had severe stomach ulcers. Her entire stomach was completely inflamed and red, and it looked like her stomach, instead of being nice and smooth and natural color, it was like pipe organs. They were so inflamed and red, and then the entrance to her duodenum also had slices, what looked like little cut slices, and those were ulcers and bleeding as well. So they basically said, we're gonna keep her for a few days to get her fluids up and make sure that she's passing and eating, and give you all the medications and send you home. So I was asking the vets, like, what can I do to heal this? You know, what happens when I go home and the meds wear off? And basically all he could tell me was that the scopes are going to be a regular part of your life with her, and regular scopes should be added into your regimen. And I'm thinking, well, I can't keep doing this to her like every year, every 6 months, just to see if ulcers are there. You know, like, that's not fair to her. And so they really didn't have any answers for me. They didn't like some of the herbs that she was already on and the natural stuff that I was doing, and they made that very clear to me on the paperwork and also to my face. So I let that go. So she was getting sweet feed and alfalfa, and she was getting, they sent me home with $800 worth, a month's supply of Gastrogard tubes. I had sucralfate and another medication, and I was supposed to be giving her the meds every 8, 12, and 24 hours. Because she had such severe bleeding ulcers and they hadn't quite seen a case like hers before, they were having me give her the entire tube of omeprazole every morning on an empty stomach, which was well over the dosage it should have been for a horse her size. And so after 3 to 4 days at the university, I took her home and immediately put her with my mom's horse so that she wasn't alone. And I did everything that I could to eliminate any form of stress and pain that could also be contributing to her being anxious and those ulcers. After about 2 weeks on the medication and about a week and a half, I would say, on the Gastrogard, and calling out of work because I didn't actually live where my horse Sis was, crushing pills. Why can't they give you the pills crushed to begin with? It's my first question. So my whole family's crushing pills and just doing this with me and around the clock, and I was just completely exhausted. Obviously, I now had anxiety and stress to the max, because I'm still wondering what's gonna happen at the end of the month when the medication wears off. And I'm gonna be in the same boat, and I can't do this, and I can't put her through this. So I was also talking with my chiropractor and friends and people who had tried a more natural, approach to gut health, and I just had a lot of information that I was absorbing and that was thrown at me, and I really just had to pause and take a deep breath and say, okay, Chels, with all the information that you have in front of yourself, you now have to make the decision for yourself. What are you gonna do? Because at this point, the meds weren't working. I was noticing that she was experiencing the acid rebound effect, and you can look into that, but a certain percentage of horses do experience this when on omeprazole, and of course we did. So her stomach was starting to get sucked in again, and she was breaking out in a sweat at her flank when I was giving her the Gastrogard omeprazole on an empty stomach in the morning. And so at that point I'm like, well shoot, try to feed her and get that in her. I was constantly making sure that she had hay all the time, that she was grazing, just working on that, and also in the process of getting herbs that would help heal her gut. So what I also had done during this time was I went back to that herbal test that I had did in October of 2017. Remember, we're in May of 2018. I went over the herbs and the descriptions of the herbs that she did choose, even though I was naughty and I didn't complete the whole test. And wouldn't you know that the herbs that she picked had to do with pain, inflammation, ulcers, stomach, like anything digestive related and digestive helping. She picked all of those in addition to herbs that aid in calming. So what I realized is where I went wrong and where the mistake was is that her attitude and how she acted was based on how she felt. And because her gut health was so poor, and I didn't realize in purchasing her that she most likely had these ulcers because she was that high anxiety and already under so much stress that was coming out in her personality, that I didn't realize I was getting a horse that had a problem. And so what I learned from those who were helping me was that I wasn't feeding or doing anything bad at the time. However, I wasn't doing enough good to counteract the bad that was already there. And what I've learned with the body and shared in videos with you before is that you're either constantly on the path to wellness and feeding the body towards that, and there's really no place of stagnant, because just because you're not feeding anything bad doesn't mean anything bad won't happen. The body will always want to revert to the negative side of things. If you're feeding that way, the body will get there quicker. So you're just constantly, like us, you need to constantly eat your vegetables. You constantly got to drink your water, and the list goes on and on. So I just wasn't doing enough good to counteract the bad. And so I immediately got her on herbs that would help heal her gut. I got her on whole foods that help heal the gut, many of which you'll find on Google. They say don't feed horses, but it's actually ulcer healing for people and pets. So I really went against everything that would be advised by medical professionals, because what I was using and what I was prescribed was not working. And I was gonna be in the same, I just knew that I was gonna be in the same place that I started with. And then what? Then put her down after I walked away from the university with a $5,000 vet bill. So when the university sent me home, I was to come back in June of 2018 because they were going, a month later, they were going to stomach scope her and see where we were at after all of the medication. Halfway into that month of being away from the university and being back home, I did about a week overlap of medication from the vets and then herbal medication, and then I completely dropped the GastroGuard, and by that point I was pretty much done with the sucralfate and another medication, which are just, by the way, they're just coaters of the gut. They don't actually heal the gut, they just coat it. It doesn't fix the problem. You have to get to the root of the problem. So I had to go back to work at this point, so kind of kept in touch with my mom, who was continuing to feed the herbs morning and night. Picky eaters have gut problems. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. That's why they're picky. So once I got Sis back from the university, because she ate sugary feed at the university, she of course then didn't want to eat her fruits and vegetables as far as her healthy stuff. So I had to, myself and my mom had to mix her herbs with water and syringe it for at least a week. And then when her gut healed enough from that, she wasn't picky about it and was able to eat it herself. So it was quite the process. It wasn't an easy process. This is something that we were dedicated to because I wanted to see the results, and I really had no choice. It wasn't like, oh, we'll see what happens. Like, no, I have to do this because if I don't, I'm gonna be where I was. Are you ready? This is about a full week in now, I would say, or about. to eating all the herbs. We don't have to syringe them, which is awesome. I mean, she's feeling better. She can't wait for them, as you can see. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here and let her enjoy her food like she's used to. And so we went back for the scope at the University of Missouri. At this point, I was kind of back to starting, I was waiting to see what the results were before I started riding again or doing anything. But we were pretty hopeful because she was acting much calmer. She wasn't acting as spooky and anxious. And so we got there and they did the scopes, all of which I recorded on video and also picture. And my mom and I stood there with tears coming down her faces because when they scoped her, her stomach was completely normal. And there were no more ulcers. And you could see the vet, his eyebrows kind of went up and he was like, because he had told us when we left that she wouldn't be healed from the ulcers, that it was something that we would probably always battle with, and he didn't expect them to be completely gone, but he was hoping that they would be better. And so they were gone, and her paperwork actually reads no overt ulcerations were found. And what I find ironic is that he never actually, none of the vets asked me what I did. And I didn't tell them what I did because they didn't want to know. And that is the part that saddens me. I have had, since then, veterinarians who have asked me what my protocol is for ulcer cases when nothing else is working. What did you do? And it just really surprised me that they didn't. And so I didn't tell them, and we are now, it is July of 2021 when I'm recording this, at the end of July, and I've never had to scope her since, and she has been fine ever since. Sis and I were able to resume training and barrel racing and do all of these things that I didn't think I'd be able to do with her. And I did have room in my heart for another horse. And the horse that I didn't really like or want in the beginning turned out she was the horse I needed. And I don't wish what we went through on anybody, and I wouldn't take it back. I'm glad that we went through it. Thank you to my hubby for encouraging me and helping me pay off the vet bills, because of our story, it has helped so many horses throughout the United States, in other countries, and people who, they will literally send me their entire vet protocol of what their vet told them and what they've been doing, and they're frustrated, they're upset just like I was. I've been there. I understand what you're going through, and so many horses have gotten better because the owners have decided to look into other options and make an informed decision for themselves. And I'm just so grateful for that. And I'm so glad that through our story that you guys have just been able to have your horses back again. And it's just been an amazing, amazing journey.